Meeting 9 o'clock, we'll call the meeting to order, start with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll start off with wishing a happy birthday to our board clerk today, so.
Where's the cake?
Bring that right.
You guys agree that?
Approval of the agenda. Everybody's had a chance to review and look at the agenda. There's only two changes I would like to make is to move consent agenda 6 and 7 to an action item. So it'll be 9 and 10.
Yes. You need a motion and second for that?
Yeah, with that change, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda with those two changes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay. Approval of previous minutes, board meeting May 7th, 2024. Everybody's had a chance to look at those and read them. Is there any additions or corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve? Motion to approve. Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes approved. Work group session, May 14th, 2024. Everybody's had a chance to look at those. Is there any additions or corrections? If not, is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion is made and second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Public comment. Now is the time for anybody who would like to make a public comment. Anybody on the screen? Okay, no public comment. That's a no. Appointments, no appointments either. Consent agenda. Item number 1 is all the Sobel Trail resolutions. 2 is the Richard Sanitation's contract with Houston County. 3 is the new hauler license application agreement with Miller Scrap. 4, approve resolution for gambling permit, Bluff Country Hidden Heroes for gambling activities to be conducted at Maycal Grove Country Club in Caledonia. 5, approve on sale and Sunday liquor license for Money Creek Haven, which will expire 6/30/2024. License will be prorated June 30th, 2024, and will be renewed as of July 1st, 2020. Number 8, accept the resignation of Deanne Vick from Tech Clerk. Number 9, approve hire Gavin Schrader, drop site supervisor, 67-day casual employee. And number 10, approve hire of Michael Bolt for maintenance specialist. Is there any?
I guess the only question I had was on the Money Creek Haven. Is there a change of ownership that they have just a short license period on the 24?
They did the same thing
last year.
They did the same thing last year. You want to come?
Okay.
Sure.
As far, I'm Michael Burbach, General Manager of the Haven.
Okay.
As far as the dating, it's the way the state of Minnesota does it. So the start of the liquor license year is that July 1st. And then-
Doesn't it go until the following June? of last
Yes,
year?
but we didn't get in last year. So there was no licensing then.
Very good.
Weren't you here last year? for
I
it?
was, yes.
You didn't get in.
We jumped through lots of hoops last year. It did not work out. So,
Okay.
Didn't work out.
All right. This year, hoping it'll work.
hopefully, yes.
Okay.
So,
All right. I was just wondering why the short period for that one, but yeah, explained it.
and then we get to pay the full rate too.
Yeah.
Again,
With that information, I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda approved. Moving on to action item number 1, consider approving Brownsville VFW donation, the amount of the Veteran Service Office to use for any veteran needs. Is there an amount?
Oh, 200.
$200.
$200, okay, it's usually just around 150, 200, yeah. Is there a motion to? Move to approve. Second. Motion made second, any further discussion? Note of a thank you to them. Yep, thank you to the for the donation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Number 2, consider rescinding award made on May 7th. Brian, you want to explain their little mix up there?
Yes, so when I was here at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, the abstract that we had said that Century Traffic LLC was the low bid and Sir Lions Lot was the second bid, and the names at the top of that abstract were switched around. So the actual dollar amount approved was the correct dollar amount, but the contractor was Sir Lions Lot. It should have been Sir Lions Lot instead of Traffic Market. So I got back to the office and I went to my supervisor, it was approved, and said the name. I'm like, wait, that doesn't sound right. And then 2 minutes later, Sheila came over to me and said, yep, the abstract was flipped. So it was the correct dollar amount, just a different contractor. So the letter or notice of award was not provided or mailed out to the contractor. So we have not notified them of the actual award. So what I'd like to do is award to the low bid contractor today instead of how it was done last time.
So we need a motion to rescind the award to from Century. Then we need a motion to accept Sir Lions Lot.
Yeah.
Is there a motion to rescind the award made on May 7th to Century Traffic?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Is there a motion to award the contract to Sir Lions Lot with the low bid?
Move to award the Sir Lions Lot.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signifies by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, we got that cleared up.
Thank you.
We're not gonna get in trouble, are we?
No,
Number 3, consider adopting resolution 2412 establishing a school zone speed limit.
yeah, so 2 weeks ago, we had some discussion on the school zone speed limit in La Crescent on 6 and 29, which is Elm Street. Since that time, the city of La Crescent has approved the 20-mile-hour school zone speed limits around all the schools on their system. So that was approved at their meeting last Monday. So it's 20 miles per hour when children are present. And today, what I would like to do is approve the school zone speed limit on Elm Street at the location shown in the resolution, which is essentially half a block to the north of South 7th Street to a half a block south of South 3rd. So we have the main segment going by the elementary school, and then the same thing up by Crucifixion School, half block north of South 3rd and half block south of Main Street, which is the locations discussed 2 weeks ago. So it will be effective after board approval and once the signs are up. So we'll work with the city, try to get the signs all up at the same time. So probably sometime in June or July, the sign should be up and we can start enforcing the school zone speed limits.
It's only during
When children are
when
present,
kids are present, right?
yes.
Not in the summer or whatever, if there's no kids around.
There's no kids around, correct?
So just kind of a question on that. So Elm Street is kind of the main thoroughfare when people are walking. So if a mother and father is walking with their 10-year-old child, is that the way it's signed is when children are present?
Yep, so
So that
technically
would
they're,
kind of fall under the term that Dewey and I are familiar with officer discretion. I mean, it's the only kind of hiccup that I see on that is that's a main, I mean, I drive that 2-3 times a day and any time of the day, there's families that are walking that. So that section, you know, should they just maybe make it 25 like they talked about the whole city instead of, you know? And that's the backside of the school.
yep, so we can definitely make it a different speed than 20, doesn't need to be 25. The city went to 20 on theirs. They prefer that it's uniform around all the sides of the school.
Food for thought for the board and
Technically, yes, you know, if there is a child walking with their parent on that side of the, you know, outside the fence on that sidewalk by the
2:30 in the afternoon on Saturday afternoon. That's children present.
That would have to be under officer discretion.
Yeah, oh, yes.
If you're gonna have daycares that'll be walking their kids during the day.
Well, that'd be something where it would be enforced.
Yes. Well, I mean, if you got a daycare and you got 15 kids, then I think it would be enforceable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's what I think would be designed more
Yeah.
for.
Mhm.
Is it typical for the school zones to say that exactly like that when
What?
children are present, or do they say during school times?
Most places do when children are present. Sometimes they do it during those set hours in the morning and the evening, but the majority around the state are when children are present.
The McCrescent discussed that some, and that's what they.
Yes.
The thing
Yeah,
is that even in the summertime, there's a daycare going on at the elementary school going over to the swimming pool, so there'll be children present in July, even though it's outside school. So that's why
Crucifixion does
one
that as
present.
well, so.
Yeah, and the city did get approval to, I believe they got funded here a week ago to redo South Sixth Street going to the school or from the school to the pool. To redo that roadway to make it more conducive to walking back and forth to the pool. So there's probably be an increase in kids going across that South Sixth.
Right, because that was where that bump out proposals, which is not finally designed yet. Hasn't been totally designed yet for that.
Seems like they.
Correct, yeah, but they're gonna wanna move along with that now they got funded for the other portions. So.
Well, there's a lot of traffic on that street. It's from the main thoroughfare, getting out to the valley, and a lot of young people going from the school year round, be it during school time and of course during summertime going to the pool. And I understand Commissioner Schultz concerned about 2025. But you know, when there's that many kids and it's for a short period of time of 2 blocks, you can't get up to 30 miles an hour. You know, in that half block between Third and the alley and between Third and Fourth. And you can't get up to 30 miles an hour between South Seventh and the alley between Sixth and Seventh. So I think the 20 is safe. And again, the officer discretion makes a decision. And of course, the person over there in the courthouse says yea or nay to the citation coming in. So anyway, I think it's for the betterment of the kids and the people in the community. And I think let's go with the 20.
Is that a motion?
This is 7 days a week. Yes. When kids are
Saturday,
present.
Sunday, doesn't matter if it's a school zone. This is 7 days a week if there's children present.
Correct.
School zone, you can call it that, but it's 7 days a week, whether school's in session or not.
If there's kids present.
It's present.
Children are present.
They play soccer about every Sunday someplace.
Are they looking at the 25 still for the entire city or not?
Last I heard it's been dropped.
Yeah, it's been dropped for now. It might come up. Farther down the road. I know there's been some stuff that changed at the state legislature this
So it's
last
not
year.
like less confusion. if they give it
Make it 25.
25. It's kind of in the middle. There's a lot of walkers, a lot of kids coming all the time.
A lot of traffic, a lot of kids.
So is that a motion doing that?
It's a motion.
No second then.
Motion's been made in second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Number 4, consider approving contract with Seal Strategic Innovations to conduct a strategic planning process for Public Health Division. John.
Morning.
Morning.
All right. We've talked to you quite a bit about the changes in public health funding that came out of the last legislative session. Two big areas of funding, foundational public health responsibility and response sustainability grant. Those two sources of funding were passed in the last legislative session. They are bringing in the neighborhood of $150,000 more a year to public health operations. That is, they passed and it's in the in the base state budget. It's in statute. So that's ongoing funding as opposed to one time. Sometimes you'll see these referred to as grant. In fact, response sustainability grant has it in the term. MDH kind of approaches grants like allocations in human services. These are allocated figures. They're based on funding formulas. Dewey was involved in some of those discussions with the Shack Group. And so these dollars started flowing the beginning of 2024. And we've been working with MDH to kind of decide, okay, so here's this big new influx of money. What are the new responsibilities? One of the big things that both are focused on is building local capacity for local public health. So we've been working with MDH, and in fact, they had a webinar, kind of a kickoff for some of these new funds. And one of the early adopters in Bloomington City Public Health had used the organization that we're proposing today to do some strategic planning with them. The idea is that we're looking at is form a strategic approach to this new long-term funding and probably leading to changes in our staffing pattern. But doing that in a more planful way and looking at our overall operation and making sure that our long-term plans are consistent with what the statute allows us to do and what its intent is. This organization, SEAL, has experience with Minnesota Public Health, so they understand the funding changes and the recent changes at the legislature. And they've also been involved in some of or are aware of our cost and capacity study information that we put together. The really good thing about this is the cost of this is 100% covered by other grants. So we received last year also a CDC infrastructure grant. Each county received that. It's kind of interesting. It's a one-time grant from the federal CDC to build infrastructure. Our proportionate amount wasn't enough to cover one staff person, and even for 1 year, once that money is done at the end of a year, it's done. So we didn't think it was advisable to bring that forward and use it to address certain capacity issues. However, the planning for this is definitely within the scope of what that grant can be used for. Also, the Foundational Public Health Responsibility Grant, this work is an allowable expense for that. And so since that money is there, we want to start spending some of it as well. So to do this strategic approach to, really a sea change in local public health, it's a generational increase in public health funding that we've not seen, at least in my career. And going at it in a very planful way, we can do it without any cost to the county and come up with a good long-term approach. Jordan, do you have anything to add? So today we've got this contract in front of you to consider, and if you approve that, we'll get started with that planning process and likely come back to you with plans as to how we're going to be allocating these new funds.
How much is the funds?
The new funds coming to us between those two pots, foundational public health responsibility and response sustainability grant, is about $150,000 a year. There's also the potential for some cannabis money, which if you paid attention to the end of the session, it kind of got put into some sort of a report that was acted on, that it's likely going to see some reduction. But in last year's legislation, they put $10 million ongoing into local public health to do public health education around the cannabis legalization. So some of those dollars, it's on the governor's desk right now, whether he signs it or not, would take about a third of that money and send it to different other organizations. It also expanded kind of the scope of what you can do with it as it relates to prevention of drug use and other things, not just cannabis. So that just came out yesterday. I don't have a whole lot of how that's going to actually work out, but we were anticipating those dollars also landing sometime in the second half of 24.
So they're using the sales tax or the 10% tax on cannabis to educate for public health on the bad effects of cannabis. Is that right?
We're not exactly sure. It was really broadly stated in last year's legislation, 10 million spread across the state for local and tribal health to do public health prevention and education related to the new cannabis legalization. So what passed in the wee hours this past weekend was a reduction in that, with about a third of it going to some other organizations, which I'm not sure who they are, and widen the scope of what it is. It's not just cannabis, it's other drugs as well. But all I have is a summary from LPHA. We tend to see what those things that pass, what it means. It takes a couple of weeks to kind of figure that all out.
It's 1,400 pages, so it takes a while. To figure
Yeah,
out.
I didn't get through them all yet. So, but that's another, we'll likely see some money out of that cannabis education piece. We're just not sure what it is or what the responsibilities will be. Kind of like we didn't know what the responsibilities were going to be or what the money was for foundational public health or response sustainability. So now that we know those figures and we know more what our responsibilities are, this is an opportunity to do some good planning, because it's a significant change and a long-term change.
So how much is the SEAL Strategic Innovative project cost?
I think it's about 40,000. That
All
won't,
covered by new grants not included in the budget.
CDC infrastructure is in last year's budget, isn't it?
Mhm.
No, okay,
How
sorry.
much was that? 78,000?
Yeah.
Over
That wasn't in the budget.
5-year term. Or if it was had a placeholder. in the budget,
It may have had a placeholder in the budget. I don't have that in front of me. So,
But the key here is that the 40,000 cost for this is covered by monies that you're
Right.
gonna get, but are
Right.
not included in the budget, so it's
Right.
it's not a levy.
we have received that grant, the CDC infrastructure grant. We didn't, what I'm wondering about is whether we got it in time for it to be part of the budget. we knew it was coming and we may have put a placeholder or something. I'd have to look at the doc. But it is, we do have it now.
I think what Bob's getting at, this is all being done with grant dollars.
Exactly.
Correct.
Not levy dollars.
Correct. No levy dollars. We have plenty of grant dollars. It's a good use of those funds where it's like, if you're not going, CDC wants you to build infrastructure, but they give you a one-time grant to do it. And so this,
All I'm asking is that the grant dollars weren't allocated to something and now it's being shifted
No.
over to this and we're gonna have to make up for it.
No.
Someplace else.
nope, if they were in the budget, it was just kind of a placeholder there. We didn't have any expense to that grant built into the 2024 budget. It was too late in the season to know exactly what that was going to be.
So did you have a bid? Or, I mean, this was the low bid or you just saw it out?
We
See,
reached out to her because she had done work in Minnesota. We decided that it's specialized enough work that we talked with local public health association and our public health regionals consultant as to other folks who could do this work. There really wasn't anybody. And so we felt that the best thing to go with was somebody who is already familiar with this specific legislation, the funding and what we're trying to achieve. So we reached out to her. We worked on a work plan and the funding for it.
okay.
From an audit perspective, we would consider that a sole source provider.
Mhm.
There's just nobody else
That
who can do
does
it.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the contract? Move to approve. Sir,
Second.
motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Same sign. Contract approved.
Right. Thank you.
Guys. Action item number 5, approval of the banding and pay rate change for Lucas Onstead, accessor to D61, step 9, effective 5/27/2024. Yes, Kruger.
Good morning, Commissioners.
I'd like to make a note on this that I am recusing myself on this recommendation and action due to a conflict of interest. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. Recently came to our attention that our assessor office employees were being recruited and looked at from other counties, and that we were that there were concerns as to whether we had our positions appropriately banded or salaries set. Our office agreed, and I informed the Personnel Committee that I'd be reviewing the job description of the assessor and sending that along with the AMA, the accredited Minnesota appraiser position, our top 2 positions in the department, to DDA for an independent review of those job descriptions to determine if in fact our bands are correct on these positions. It came back that they were not for those 2. Currently, our current assessor is at a pay range of approximately $87,000, and looking at comparable positions across similar counties, we were at least $30,000 below. That caused us to think that maybe the banding is off. I am not stating that the salaries within those bands are necessarily off, but the banding for that position was off. So it came back that would be a D61. when looking at the individual's appropriate step placement, Commissioner Severson and I, as the Personnel Committee, agreed that it should be step 9, which would take the individual from a pay rate of $41.84 to, I believe it's $51.20. It's taking the position from the individual's pay would go from a little over 87,000 to approximately 106,000. This still appears below what some are referring to as market, but I feel that this is the correct step and placement. And I'm not looking at a salary adjustment beyond that. It's well within our D61 range.
The recommendation is that, well, long story short, our department is doing too dang good a job. And they're being looked at, and I feel that it's necessary to keep up with the market as we see in all businesses, in all fields of work. It's difficult to get good people, or sometimes even any people. To get good people and keep good people, we need to sometimes adjust. And I realize this is quite an adjustment. But with that said, it's one of those things we need to keep what we have for the betterment of the county. And sometimes we have to go that extra mile, kind of that extra spot in this one. That's why I feel that's important we do this.
And I would like to clarify, thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to also clarify the decision band method is our methodology that we use for our reports to the state for pay equity and comparable worth. This is not, and although I appreciate and respect the discussion on market, the decision for a band is not based on market. It is based on 3 factors. And one is our positions are classified into 6 separate bands based on the characteristics of the job itself and the types of decisions that are made by it. The complexity or difficulty of the job, the operational decision-making, and the whether or not they have folks that they supervise, the essential functions, as well as the essential education skills and abilities, level of discretion and authority. Obviously, when you think about the level of discretion and authority for an assessor and its value to the overall organization, the county, as a backbone for the many of the well, for the income, basically, as to how the revenue stream is determined, and appropriate fairness to the citizens. It's a critical job. It really is in a D range.
So Lucas, he's in the union, correct?
It's in this position is covered by the Minnesota Association of Professional Employees, MAPE. Correct, Commissioner.
So where is his union rep? He should be here.
And no, these decisions are made by the board. They're made by the county. They are not negotiated with the union. So,
I think you're wrong. I think we should have a union rep here, because all of a sudden we negotiate with you. And the union rep says that ain't right. I think we should have the union rep here if we're going to discuss his wages.
well, certainly, Commissioner, and the union plays a role in whether or not they feel their employees are being treated in a manner that violates the contract. However, under, I believe it is Article 4, it may be Article 3 of the MAPE agreement, there is a reservation of rights of managerial authority. I see Commissioner Johnson has that, and the managerial authority, I can pull that up if you wish.
You discussed at our last meeting that there might be need to be a MOA
I spoke with, that's not necessary.
with.
I thought I had, that the there isn't anything in the union contract that prohibits us from doing this, where they don't have a minimum. They don't have a standard set around when there is a quote promotional opportunity, what the minimum is. So we look at our past practice as a county. And I am informed that the union is in support of this determination. But it's not requiring an MOA. Would you like me to pull up the language and read that for you, Commissioner?
Whatever.
I will do that. If that's helpful. And here. That's employer rights
3, isn't it?
is Article 3.
Employer rights.
Correct. It's recognized that except as specifically modified by this agreement, the employer retains all managerial rights, including inherent rights and authority necessary to operate and direct the affairs of the county and its divisions in all various aspects. These rights include, but are not limited to, determine county policies, functions, and programs, determine and establish budgets, utilization of technology, select, assign, direct, evaluate, promote employees. This would be considered a type of promotion. To plan, direct, control all the operations and services of the employer to determine whether goods or services shall be provided, resources purchased, etc. Any term or condition of employment not specifically established by this agreement shall remain solely within the discretion of the employer to modify, establish, or eliminate. And so that is why we're here today. This is within the managerial authority determinations to be made.
Last week at our group work, we had some discussion on this, and as we've been talking about this for some period of time. I think this resolution or this proposal to change the banding is necessary and appropriate, so I make a motion to approve the banding and pay rate change.
Motion's been made. Is there a second? Is there a second? Is there a second?
We still have it for up and down.
Motion fails for lack of second.
Any discussion?
We can continue, yep.
The reason I didn't second, I want to know what's the probability or what's the likelihood of continued problems? If we make this change for, we have the fear of losing somebody. What's going to be the union position? What's going to be the likelihood of ramifications from this action?
Well, we are, again, I would like to point out that how we got here is that, yes, it was brought to our attention we may be losing someone. However, we went through our normal processes to determine the band. The And that wasn't based on any kind of, excuse me, any kind of determination, we're afraid we're gonna lose this person. It just triggered the process. We are in negotiations. There have been, with regards to the pay rates within each band or classification, those are being negotiated. I'll be bringing something to the board. The personnel committee will be in early June as far as an update, but it is no secret nor private that there are market considerations by every unit we've met with thus far. And there is going to be, I expect with the units we haven't met with, that they're looking at more than just a cost of living increase, they're looking at market adjustments as well. That said, to answer your question, I think that's where the issues are going to lie, is through negotiations.
Is what would be stopping John from saying, well, Fillmore County wants me, so I need this much money to stay. Brian, he could go to Winona County because they offered him more money. So are we gonna go through this every so often that somebody's pursuing one of our people?
Commissioners,
Somebody
as
could be after Andy any day. I mean, what are you
commissioners,
gonna do?
Commissioners, as I previously stated, I think it's very important to separate whether we have market concerns regarding the pay within our bands from the decision as to whether our employees are in the correct band in the first place. Those are two different decisions. As I said, one, the fact that our staff was being looked at and recruited did trigger having the job description reviewed, and the job description was accurate and sent back and sent to DDA for a determination as to whether it was accurately banded. That's one decision. What you, as a board, determine to do as we go through negotiations on the market portion of it, as the assignment of values to those bands, pay values, that's a total different question, and that's going to be what I believe is at the heart of our negotiations.
So was one question here, when you do the negotiation with them, is that the time that you kind of look at some of the banding? It seems like we're kind of running into some banding issues in other areas as well.
We were asked by one unit to take a look at a position that had been downgraded during our last study. We didn't look at the banding right away. We looked at the job description. The department head and I did, looked at the job description and felt it required some changes, that what we call a job audit. And so we made those changes, and that particular position, which we'll be bringing to the board next week, was then pushed back up to its previous band level that it was. Positions are fluid, if you will. So sometimes as people gain more authority within their job or more expertise or whatever, then we do look at that. So we did have that come to us through negotiations, and we did take a look at that. And I'm working with the department head to put that on next week's agenda. And it's in the highway department. We haven't, during our compensation study that we did in 21 that poured into 22, several positions were what they called key positions that they were, that DDA was basing its study on for market determinations. A couple of those at that time, they also did banding review, determined, I think the one fell down couple of others were pushed up. We had changes to the job descriptions. And so we reviewed a considerable number of them at that time. Our union contracts provide that if people feel their job descriptions need to be reviewed, we review them, and if there's significant changes, that's when we send them up for banding review, if they're minor changes. You know,
So we do have a schedule to review them, so we don't get into this.
annually, when the employee is, the department heads are to look at their job descriptions to see if in fact the people, the essential functions are still the same. The essential education is still the same. This is one that probably needed to be done, yeah. It was brought to our attention.
I just want for information for everybody that currently he's a C-53 step 4, correct? I
Yes,
believe.
He's at 4184, I believe,
Yeah, that's step 4.
yes.
So in a situation where we don't look at outside market forces or whatever, when you move somebody up to another banding, like to a D, in this case, a D61, you take into account the next closest step plus 3%, is that correct?
Well, first, the one thing we look at, are they do a step increase? And what would that step increase be if it's about the same time? Because we don't want them to go backwards.
Right.
Okay, so we take a look at that, and if I'm not mistaken, it's Carol.
So you would be looking at step 5, 43.30.
Yes, and then
Then you go 3% from that.
a minimum of 3% as the next step, that's at least 3%. So it can be 3.01%, but it can't be 2.9%. So sometimes the next step ends up being giving them a 5.5% increase. But it's a minimum of 3% is what the county's practice has been. The next closest step that isn't less than.
So that would be like a D61 step sub 6. Is that right?
No, I'll have to go back. Look at that. That's probably correct.
Well,
Well,
I guess in the alternative, this is what this is what I had recommended to, because of some of the exigent circumstances to the personnel committee. I guess the alternative would be, and the exigent circumstances being we recently lost a person that's going to be AMA level appraiser. We were potentially losing, and our other staff being recruited. So how many of them, I couldn't say, but I know there's a discussion there. I guess the alternative would be a minimum of next step, a minimum of 3% or greater, but even our step 9 is probably, you know, it's up to the individual whether they'll stay or not for that. They can stay or they can go. I am told that he would accept that. I don't know if he would accept the 3% or next highest step, but that is an option that you have.
motion failed for lack of a second, so unless there's a new motion for different
Banding or something.
step. I mean, is there disagreement on the banding, D61 or,
I do not disagree with the ban.
okay. So unless there's another motion,
But what? All right, currently he's at. Currently, the assessor position is at 4184.
Correct.
So can you tell me what? The D61, and that's at step 4. Can you tell me what? D61 steps 5, 6,
step 5 is 4461, step 6 is 4617. Step 7 is 4778.
when is step, when does he do step 5?
Just a moment here.
I think it's February, isn't it?
I may be
It's
mistaken.
passed, so he just got a step. To step.
I'd have to look that up. I don't.
Yeah, so
I
it won't be
don't
till
recall.
next February's next step increase, if he was in the same band. So.
Yeah,
so
anniversary
the
date.
Anniversary date would change with this,
The 2080-hour clock starts all over
right?
for the purpose of earning another step.
So we pulled 2 out of the consent agenda for a banding and a step raise. And now we're gonna do this. Not really fair to the other workers.
Or you just pull it out of the consent, put on action.
Yeah, for next time, but I mean, we gotta do this a little better deal. I mean, we should have the union involved here.
Wasn't necessary to have the union involved.
Because if something goes wrong, they're gonna be the first ones to come after us.
Well, I highly doubt they're gonna be against somebody getting more.
Well, it's-
I
They
think
should have a union up here. I mean, if we're in the union, that's what they're there for. And he's on a pay scale already. He gets a step, he gets a 3%. And everybody's okay with that before, and now all of a sudden we gotta change it.
the banding is not a union determination. Band is your determination
Employee.
By a third party.
based on the vendor we have for that, their recommendation. The county has historically done a 3% or next closest step. The step that isn't less than a 3%. That has been the county's.
Which we talked about, which we just discussed,
Which
would be a step 6, right? We determined that would be the,
I'd have to do the
I
arithmetic.
believe
on
that's right.
So the study showed the banding off.
That's correct. The banding is off.
And kind of what Greg's concerned about is we do this for that department, are we gonna have every department coming in with the same, wanting to see the banding re-looked at? That's why I asked when it's kind of being done. To try and get a timeline. I mean, their office, I've heard great things from them. I'm involved in their township, I'm involved with the city down in Boca, and they don't send their people to the trainings because their department does an awesome job. And like Dewey said, we're trying to not lose people, keep people in there, but yet we've got a levy to follow in on. So kind of in a rock and a hard spot here. I think that we need to do something, try and retain our employees as well. But I just don't know if that's big of a jump is the direction.
I think we can all agree that the banding needs to be adjusted to 61.
That's all.
So we've got that hurdle. Now we're looking at what step, how far up the step do we go? And last weekend, or was this 2 weeks ago, we had I have my notes here. I was looking at 6 or 7 in the D61 step 6 or 7 as my original thoughts and notes and kind of threw that out. And I'd like to go with the step 7 of the D61.
Is it possible to bring back more of these steps so we can see it at next week?
As far as what steps?
The 6 versus the 7?
Oh, the
So we have a
money
little more
part.
time.
Well, we know what they are. It's what-
Step 6 is 4617, step 7 is 4778.
And the
Okay.
discomfort here, you are absolutely correct. Normally, we do a 1.03, 3% or next closest step. That's not less than that. The difference here is and I will describe them as exigent circumstances in that our assessor's office right now appears to be low-hanging fruit that's being plucked away. And so you have a difficult decision. I understand that before you. I understand that the union is not going to MAPE itself is not going to feels that this is within your not going to grieve this, as there's no grievance to it if we placed them higher on the grade, on the pay grade.
Oh, we have. a
I don't
union
think
rep.
we have an equity issue. I don't think I feel strongly there's not a pay equity issue and that there's valid reasons to for the commissioners to make your determination based on what you feel is in the best interest of the county.
Commissioner Burns, you asked what step, what, 9?
What's it?
8 and 9 is 49, 46 is 8. 5120 is 9.
And if we make a change, it's effective today
Well, the same
or
date.
for the pay. Pay period.
Well, they had it down here as a 527.
Beginning of the next pay period.
I suppose pay.
And then
pay
he
period.
would be, then the assessor would be up for a step increase in February.
No,
Starts over.
his new anniversary
over
date's
today.
527.
For the purpose of steps, the anniversary date changes. Not for other benefits. You know, there are rules on vacation and things like
And how many years of service does the individual have thus far? Overall,
that. Question. Pardon me?
of 17.
8 years, September. For those who didn't hear.
And he was appointed assessor, what, 3 years ago? 4
Four.
year, 4th year. Good.
It's possible to make another motion then as far as.
Oh, yeah.
You can entertain another motion if you'd like.
Eight years of experience, 4 as they had assessed. All right, again, I'll make a motion to adjust the pay to a D61 step 7, effective at the next pay period.
Motion made,
Second.
motion's been seconded. Any further discussion?
As that we do by roll.
Any further discussion? All right, we'll vote by roll,
District one,
Yes.
District two,
abstain.
District three,
Yes.
District four,
Yes.
District five.
Nope.
Thank you, commissioners.
Nine and 10. Washington here.
We can,
I'm just asking, your chair.
we can do that. We could switch this up a little bit. Andy's sitting here, he's been waiting.
As
Okay,
long as this phone doesn't ring, it's okay.
I can wait as well. That's,
well, why don't we just stay on the schedule here and go to chapter 7 or action item number 6. Consider approving EDA loan request for Brian Spear and Tracy Knutson in amount of $30,000 for a market deli business called Frank and Julia's, to be located in Caledonia. Allison.
Yeah, so pretty self-explanatory. The EDA board unanimously voted to recommend to you to do this loan.
You were at our last EDA meeting and they had went through it with us and it was a very good plan and interesting.
I'll make a motion that we approve the loan for Brian Spears and Tracy Knutson.
Yeah, it's in the old Albert's grocery store, yeah.
Wasn't there another meat deal there for a while? that
Yeah.
Didn't quite make it. but
Yep.
I think this will work, so. I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Good opportunity.
If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Alright,
All right,
Opposed, same sign. Okay. Okay, action item number 7, consider discussing allocating ARPA funds, including using ARPA funds for Splunk server and board technology.
We do also have another one that came in after the agenda request was sent. And I'll let Andy just give you a brief description of what each of those things is for
Sure.
and why we need to have them
Another,
without
a
budget.
different,
It would be ARPA money.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 items. There's 3 on the one that she's missing is RSA. I'll go through each one. Boardroom technology. It's pretty self-explanatory. I've been talking about that for 2 years. They're gonna come in here, overhaul the room, overhaul the microphones, make it work. I don't want to say make it work better. That's probably the safest way. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. That was 80,000 and change. There will be probably a little bit of minor electrical work have to do with that, but have to be contracted out at the time, but I don't have that number, but that would be. The next one is Splunk. I know it's a fun one. So Splunk is a SIM. It's a logging tool. Okay, so the BCA, scratch that. The FBI comes up with a security policy. Then the state of Minnesota, BCA, takes that security policy and adds their flavor to it. And then that gets passed down to us. Effective October, we will be required to have actually the SIM was actually already required. We are required to retain logs of every device that has CGIS data. We have to, I don't know, about 1 million entries that happen a day, 1.5 million. They also write in their policy that we have to review those logs on a weekly basis for anomalies. And that's the actual wordage in the policy. So if you have 1 million logs on a plethora of devices, you need a tool that monitors that. Well, so then what happens is all these logs get dumped into Splunk. Splunk then takes these logs, filters them, goes through and looks for anomalies, uses AI to determine if you've been compromised, if there's a data spill, who's been logging in, things like that. And it is a requirement that we maintain these logs for up to a year. So Splunk is a tool that was kind of a backup. There is a group of counties that meet at Tech Connect. We do it twice a year. We looked at 5 different SIMs throughout the state. Each of us demoed couple, we demoed a different product. We all compare notes, we go leverage against the company and say, hey, if we get all these counties to jump in, we give us a better deal, stuff like that. So we did demo a product. We weren't happy with it. The group wasn't happy with it. There was two products that kind of came out on top, and they were Logarithm and Splunk. The BCA, from what I understand, has actually adopted Splunk. The other counties in our region, they've adopted Splunk. We are also adopting Splunk. We're getting a better price because we're jumping in on that. Now, that's our requirement. We have to do this. Great, we're gonna. Every agency that we support, i.e. all the PDs, they're gonna have to get on this as well. We will be able to share this for them. And as we pick up agencies, we'll negotiate pay their portion. So there'll be some hopefully money back. I know La Crescent is going to be jumping on board. So at that point, as we figure out the scale and the scope of their devices and then break it out accordingly, we will determine what they have to pay. So that's Splunk. It's a great tool. It's for cybersecurity, and it is going to be a pain, but we're going to do it. The next piece is that we need a server that's going to operate. Splunk is a very robust, very powerful software, and it takes a lot of horsepower. We have a Hyper-V high availability cluster, big server farm. Okay. The downfall is we can't run this software on that server farm because you can't run your logging tool on the same place it's logging from. If that's compromised, we don't have anything. So we have to keep it independent. We did budget for a server this year that is our domain controller server, and that's also off of that server farm. Now we are modifying that server to be a big enough server to handle the Splunk install as well with our existing domain controllers. So what we had budgeted for a hardware server this year was $10,000. The new Splunk capable server came at $18,800. So that's the server. The last piece that is effective in October is multi-factor for everything. That's RSA. Again, that's another one that we met with TechConnect, looked at different vendors to see where we're capable, what we can do. Currently, we do have multi-factor authentication for our VPNs. So if you're going to connect to the county, you are going to put in your password, you're going to get a text message to your cell phone. It's an SMS text message. It's no longer acceptable. It's not secure enough. We have to use an authenticator app. We also will be required to use the multi-factor just to get on the computer. Right now, when you sign on to your computer, you use a username and a password. All law enforcement will have to use a username, a password, and a multi-factor token to just get on the computer. It's a lot more moving parts. It's not just as simple as sending a text message with a VPN. We looked at some different options. We're going to need something that can work in the field, work in-house, got to work in the cloud, it's got to work off the cloud. RSA was the solution. That one, we got a couple different prices. I got it for a 2-year, a 3-year, and a 5-year quote. At this point, we're just going to go with the 2-year because everything's changing so fast. Locking into a 5-year isn't really any cost savings.
That's 35.
35 is the 2-year, right? So that comes out to what, 17 and change a year on that. All of this hopefully comes out of our ARPA funds. However, there will be reoccurring costs. Splunk is $19,000 a year for the next 3 years, is what we have the price locked in for. The RSA will be $17,000 a year for the next 2 years. The boardroom technology, obviously, that's a one-time purchase. And the server, you know, they have a lifespan. We run our servers between 5 and 7 years. So where we're at.
So this is all something that we need to get into that, you know, our replacement schedules and equipment that we need to start working on, like probably in June, July. We just, you know, well, if we use ARPA funds for these, they'll be covered for the terms that you're looking at right now. But we need to have a better idea of down the road.
Down the road future, because we're going to have maintenance and upgrades then too.
So the RSA actually for the 2-year, it's 17,663. For the 3-year, it's 17,519. But if you do the 5-year, it's 16,607 per year. And so you do get more with that.
I guess the only reason I caution the 5-year is because stuff is changing. I got, I hate locking myself into a 5-year product at this point. I mean, right now, we're working on Central Square. Square supports RSA. But
It's fun.
They're big.
That's a tough one because multi-factor and how we tighten up security, we have to have, we might have to go into a password manager solution for the entire county, and then that may have to change RSA's need, and I would hate to lock into something to that. So it is tough, and identity solution is very tough. Everyone's got a million passwords, everyone has a million different logins, and with multi-factor in this capacity, it was moving towards a single sign-on. So when you establish your identity on your computer, then the programs that go along with that, like Central Square or some state program, something like that, uses that identity that has already been authenticated on that computer. And then the user doesn't have as many passwords. Yeah.
So the boardroom technology is 80,000 plus change,
Plus, and then whatever electrician I'm gonna have to
Right,
get in here
right.
to make things. Yeah.
but 80,000 plus the electrical.
And we've already allocated 80,000
Right.
for that.
Right.
So
Then the next part that you talked about was there's 10,000 already allocated in the
That's a
budget,
server.
but it's gonna take another 8,000 for the server.
Correct.
So we don't have to worry about the 10,
The 10's in my budget.
but the 8 we gotta add to.
And have it.
8,800.
And then there's 35,000 for the
That would
Splunk
be, that's a RSA. That's
RSA.
multi-factor.
well, how much is this one?
Splunk is 19,000 a year, and we have it would be another contract for 3 years, each year 19,000 flat.
Each year is 19.
Mhm.
The pro rate to the other departments.
And then right, so I know the city of La Crescent is looking at jumping on, we'll host for them. And if other agencies jump on, we will bill back accordingly. Granted, a Hoka PD has 4 machines, their portion of it's gonna be very, very small. La Crescent's more substantial.
So if I understand this, 80,000 for the boardroom plus the 8,000, 35,000, now you're talking about that at 17,500 a year,
Mhm.
and then 19,000 for 3 years.
19,000 each year for 3 years.
For free.
This year's lift, I think, is
So
153,000.
we talk about our ARPA and getting it all used and allocated, and now there's some question about whether or not it has to be spent. Can we pay the 19,000 for 3 years? At lump sum?
Let's see. I believe we probably could, I come from Parasoft, so I'd have to check with them, but it is a locked-in price. I can't imagine why we couldn't.
Yeah, and the same thing with the 17,500, 35,000,
That one we would be paying all upfront.
all of them.
Mhm.
So.
But it would cover for 2
if we
years.
Pay for it all up front, including the 319s, that's 180,000 that we would be taking out of the ARPA.
I got 172.
If we pay for everything all upfront,
Mhm.
I've actually got 191.
Ooh, all kinds of numbers.
I got 80. Yep. 8,000, and it's already in the budget.
Yep.
35,000
Correct, since 10's already in the budget.
and 57,000.
181, 250.
Yeah. The whole thing is all of them.
Paying for it.
Yeah.
But what we need to do today is allocate the difference between the 80,000 that we already have and the 181,
Right.
251.
Right. 80,000 is already in the figure of the available.
That's in the 300,000.
Well, it's 295,
It's already
But you-
subtracted from.
but
the
it's already
available.
subtracted. That's where we,
So there's 306 that was down at the bottom of that
Yep,
ARPA
yep.
spreadsheet. That's already got the 80,000 taken off. of
Already
it.
been subtracted.
So we're just
instead of-
looking at
All
the-
right, all right.
You can take another 100 out of there.
So it'll be another 100,000, like Greg said,
101, 251.
101,000
Okay,
plus the electrical. So of the 306 that's available, that'll drop us down to 205. Thereabouts,
Yes,
is the 80,000 already.
It's already in there.
and we already have, or we also have the $100,000 for that other money. But we need to
Is
look at.
that time sensitive? that 100,000.
Not as time sensitive as ARPA used to be.
Well, I think we just take the 100,000 and allocate it to 101. Or whatever. And allocate it to all of this.
Well, you gotta approve it all here.
One question.
Right, because you're also,
You want to slow it down a little bit. I tell you what, I wish I could. But it is coming fast. It is right around the corner. Sorry.
so maybe earlier.
What do we gotta do? We need a motion.
Well,
Allocate
yeah, you
this
have
to
to
the-
approve the purchases of these
Long
items
server
and
and
allocation
boardroom
of the,
technology
And RSA,
and what
RSA.
RSA.
I'll make a motion including them three things that you just said.
Okay.
Four things.
Okay, and then we take 101,000 or 102,000 out of our ARPA money to fill this out.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
so if there's anything else that you want to have looked at to, you know, in spending that ARPA money, just let me know and we can start.
Much time we got left?
Well, it depends on, I haven't heard whether anything passed. I would assume they would be sending out new guidelines if anything had changed in the
That was just a
spending.
bill that was introduced, but nothing's been done.
Yeah, they said they could vote as early as last week, but I didn't hear that they did. I don't know, you know,
Only question is, we got these cars that we're looking at here from Sleepy Hollow that's no longer here. We're gonna shop somewhere else, or
Well.
we'll have to go through
we can
state.
Order the new one. Ones. State bid.
Oh.
That's still available to us, which is, it was gonna be a match with Sleepy Hollow for all practical
Okay.
purposes, so. We can still order the state bid price. And if we're gonna do the used. Slightly used, heavy, more a little heavier used, we can do that with the local dealers.
Yep.
Count.
that's fine.
So how about,
That state line auto is a good place to go to, it's in Mabel. I know that's out of county, but they do. Thanks, Andy.
thank you, thank you.
The Freedom Auto Repair does work for State Line Auto, so. It's took over the.
Is there
Sleepy Hollow
anything
building.
that says that we can't go to Plattston to walk on, or we gotta stay in Minnesota? Anybody know that?
From my perspective, we would want to stay in the county as
Yeah.
much as possible. And then so-
We don't have any car dealers in the county, do we?
No, we don't. But the state bid price is as cheap as we can get that new. We're looking at used, semi-used, heavier used. We can, like Bob said, we can go to the used dealers and have them watch for that. Something that, trouble with that is, that, you know, well, you told me to get,
Yeah,
and I did, but
yeah.
now you don't want it. So I don't want to get into that kind of a match.
Yeah, I like it better when you do the shopping.
Go visit and see what they got.
Okay,
They'll read this in the paper and they'll have all kinds of offers coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
action item number 8, consider reviewing and approving payments. You guys have seen the list of payments that need to be approved. Is there a motion to approve the payments?
So moved.
So
Motion made and second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, now we'll move back to approve a banding pay rate change for administrative legal assistant Cindy Agadal from B23 non-exempt to B24 non-exempt, step 7.
Commissioners, I worked with the department and did a position audit of the positions that are the position that is occupied by both Ms. Agadal and Ms. Von Arx. Met with the county attorney, met with the assistant county attorney, and both of those individuals went through. I had a lot of questions about how their job had changed, the kind of educational requirements, the level of skills that are required for their job, level of authority, discretion, etc. And we came up with the job description that we have, and I submitted it to DDA for review. It was positions were reviewed 2 years ago. It was determined at that time they were still at band
B23.
B23. Keeping in mind these bands kind of have a broad scope as to how they're applied. The level of complexity, though, has increased with these positions as well as some of their responsibilities, and it came back as B24. And so I am recommending B24, the positions be rebanded to that classification.
You indicate in the request here, step 7. That if I'm looking at the number of years of service, they're going from a B23-9 to a B24-7 be a reduction.
It would be based on our discussion before, based on the county's position that the county provides a 3% increase or next step. There isn't any market considerations that were being brought forth. The pay we're talking about here is going from, I believe it's $28.50 an hour to $30.19 an hour for 2024.
Okay, I was looking at the wrong step then, I apologize. I was looking at with the number of years of service that I thought they were maybe at a 9.
No. Keep in mind that in 21-22, our compensation study that we negotiated with the unions, how that compensation study would be implemented, and we put in and although these are confidential, they follow the AFSCME agreement. We put people in place based on and negotiated how much of an increase that would be, because we had made considerable changes at that time, considerable changes to the values within each of the bands. Now, it was quite for those on the negotiation team at that time, those were heavily negotiated items as to how we would implement that compensation study. So folks didn't just go from 9 to 9. They did get significant increases, but then they also had career path forward for career earnings.
In this situation here, I don't happen to agree with the banding change to a B24. I feel it should be a C42. I've had several discussions with our county attorney about what their duties are in the office. They do very confidential, important duties, and they go above and beyond what their job description does because of the, I don't know if you want to call it short staff of the county attorney's office, but I feel they should be a C42 myself.
And
What step would that end up in? With the 3% increase? As I go back
Goes
to
to
the
go to a C42, it would be step 1 or step 2. We may have to do some figuring on that. But
Because isn't that the way it would? In the same scenario as this would be. The closest step with a 3% increase. Right?
If I might add, when
Be step one at a C42,
Which is how much?
30, 15,
3166.
or 42.
respectfully, I would caution the board from making determinations that are not based upon the decision band method, but rather based upon without the documentary support for that. I do think we would be opening ourselves up to criticism, not just by the respective unions.
These are
would-
confidential employees, they're not union.
Well, and it's arguable whether they meet the definition of confidentiality anymore, because that is, are they involved in union negotiations? And they haven't been for years, but they do follow, but
As a
each of
guy-
our,
they
but each
guy-
of our unions also have an equity clause in them. And we also in policy have an equity clause. And so when we start doing it based upon, I see someone else in another part of the county is paid at a different band, I think I'm equal to that. And maybe they are, but we've always had a non-arbitrary system of sending it out to a third-party evaluator rather than it being off the cuff. I also, our job description that we submitted contained a lot of changes that were well vetted by the department as well as by myself, by the individuals that are that their positions are being looked at, as well as the county attorney. So I guess it does come down to a decision whether the county wants to continue with its current decision band method or not, but I do recommend supporting that we continue with it and not just make an arbitrary call unless it's well documented and based upon the methodology that is used by both Gallagher and DDA, David Brown and Associates.
Well, I know there was a lot of back and forth on a job description and they put things in there, then things were taken out. Some things were put back in, some things were taken back out. I mean, and
That is
also,
accurate.
yeah, so. And there's a lot in how, you know, your verbal conversations with the evaluator has some sway. So the person evaluating can see, get a visual picture of what exactly are they all doing. And that to me is up to interpretation.
Well, in fact, we can have them talk with DDA when you're talking about putting things in and taking things out. So for instance, when someone puts down something that is described with that looks like it belongs to a different person's job, for instance, makes decisions on charging is one thing. So I have to go to the county attorneys. Do they make charging decisions or does the county attorney make charging decisions? I certainly assist the county attorney in bringing forth information that is helpful to the county attorneys making those charging decisions. So for instance, we clarified that language. There's others that adjectives have we cut the adjectives out. In other words, we look at the essential functions for the ADA. And we look at the level of the precise, it should be a factual statement, not a persuasive document. So we put in, those are some of the things I take out, is I take out the persuasion, but I really try to drill down and ensure that we only have the factual statements that are in there for the evaluator. And if, and it was my understanding, because we spent a lot of time on that job description, going back and forth with the individual. I asked for further clarity, examples, to provide an example of the decisions that were being made. And then we came up with and then a statement was developed that reflected that. I think it's a very solid job description. I don't think it is open to interpretation. I think it's very clear. And it's my understanding that it is the job description supported by the supervising county attorney. The band themselves are based on a methodology that is consistently applied. And they do look at equity across the classes, if you will. What are other B24s? What are other Cs? What are they doing? The C range typically has a lot of supervision. These folks supervise other people. There are other components. They run whole programs. If you feel it would be helpful to have the DDA person speak with them, we can ask that.
Maybe that's what we should do.
And we can ask that. However, I just don't want to create false expectations, because they look at the actual level of responsibility, decision-making, discretion. There certainly is a lot of complexity with some of the new software that's out there. Hopefully someday that will get itself straightened out, but
and which would they have done and have implemented all that on their own.
And a lot of our departments, that is a common, when we have technology changes and technology that doesn't talk to each other, we have departments and in human services and others that have faced the same things. Technology creates a different level, and it was that technology that really brought this to that B24 that worked with that technology.
Well, I'm fine to have, Julie and Cindy talk to DDA and Tessa there.
Well, I can arrange for that appointment to make sure that they feel that they are heard. This isn't a personal decision by me, but I do believe the job description is clear. It's concise. A lot of time was spent on that job audit. And they brought a lot of points of clarification to it.
Well, with that, go ahead, Bob.
And just, what's step 8? What's B24 step 8?
3125.
One step up from the,
Thank you.
And one of the issues with them achieving their steps over the years is they're both part-time. So they've been here a long time, but they go through their steps a lot slower because of that. It's the nature of part-time employees.
Well, I'd like to recommend that Julie and Cindy sit down and talk with DDA and discuss what they do with them, and we can table this for now, if that's okay with everybody else.
well, I think that with the information they had, they changed the band, but I can agree that maybe they need to get more information to that third party, the DDA, whatever it is.
And I can arrange, they have that Tessa call them and arrange for a Zoom or a phone telephone conference. I don't think, they don't come down.
All right.
So
That sounds good then.
action line items number 9 and 10 are tabled at this time.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
9 and 10, you said?
Well, action items 9 and 10, yeah,
Okay.
Oops. Yeah.
so that's where we moved it to.
And while I am here, I'd just like to remind the board that we do have negotiations today.
49ers
11:30.
It's 11:30
or the 49ers.
with 49ers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Board updates, I was at the River Watershed one plan committee meeting yesterday. Not a whole lot of new stuff, but they discussed. Had a couple presentations. Dave Walter from Houston County was there. River Soil and Water. And he had his YouTube video out there on the Kirk Creek Watershed project. It's like a 3-minute video. So he invites you guys to look that up.
Is that through soil and water? You'll look it up, is that where we?
Yeah, I'll get you the information to look it up, but. Email it, link. You could, you can email a link, I'll have him do that. And then, Cody from Mower County, whichever you want to tell you.
They don't agree over there.
He had a presentation on what they're doing out there and at the head of the River Watershed. To do with prairie strips and some water runs that they were doing, so it was good to see that. So you can see the money working that's getting to work on the ground there, so. There was some discussion on the nitrate stuff. We're dealing with surface water. With the nitrate, it's groundwater. There's something in the 1,400-page bill they passed that addresses that. There's some monies for well testing and maybe some reverse osmosis situations where the kits to correct that. But the devil's in the details and how that's all gonna be done, so we didn't have a whole lot of information on that. I think they are directing, the state legislature is directing Bowser to look into some of this stuff. Like I say, Bowser handles surface water. MPCA is more of the groundwater stuff, but they're trying to get Bowser involved. Not enough information yet on that. On the discussion of the cannabis thing too, we had last week. That was just a draft proposal. It's been talked about. That there was going to be the exemptions for cities that, we already had the city of Caledonia saying that, well, if you do this, we're going to want to be exempt. So I guess we need to decide, are we going to do something here as far as regulation and ordinances and stuff, or are we just going to let the cities handle it? If they're going to be exempting everything that we do, what's the point?
Well, I mean, we have daycares out in the country, but I mean, like, I don't know what to think. We don't have any schools out in the country anymore, so I mean, we don't have to have, can't worry about that because the city's gonna take care of that, correct? They all each can set their own rules, right? If they want, they don't have to follow ours, correct? Or
In
do they?
addition to what the state
Yeah,
guidelines.
with the state guidelines. So I mean, are we gonna try and control the growers? Or shops out in the country? Is that what do we wanna look
Well,
at?
if that's our responsibility as a county,
Yeah, I
is
mean,
to
is that
control
the way-
that.
Yeah, is that the way we wanna go? Cause I don't think we wanna mess with the cities too bad, do we?
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out.
Cause Spring Grove, I don't think they're gonna change their policies, cause they like what they have.
Well, there's the only city that would want to be exempt so far is Caledonia, because a lot of the other cities don't have anything for the cannabis yet. So, I mean, Houston doesn't, Spring Grove doesn't.
Well, you got, I know Spring Grove is, they got their own, they took Caledonia's ordinance and they're gonna stay with that.
That was for the CBD stuff, correct? Not for the cannabis stuff.
Just for whatever Caledonia does with CBD, that's what Spring Grove's gonna do. Yeah, right now and until they change the laws, and I don't know what they're gonna do, how they're gonna go at it. But for right now, Spring Grove wants to keep their own ordinances because of the Spring Grove filings. That's 50 feet from a daycare and 100 feet from school. And I don't know if you can compare them to as equals. I mean, they're adding something to pop. They're not selling gummies, they're not selling anything else, so.
Manufacturing.
So.
I think we need our own zone.
I think we should have our own zoning ordinance for the growing of it. And
Manufacturing and retail.
sale too.
And if we have our own ordinance. And the city of Caledonia wants to opt out. With their own ordinance. As long as they're not. I mean, we're gonna base ours on what the state requires.
Correct.
They're gonna base theirs on the same, I mean. They can be more restrictive, but not less restrictive than. Right? And we can't be less restrictive than the state.
Their plan would be to be less restrictive than you though, according to what Jake said when he was here.
Yeah. That's what I got the.
That's an argument we gotta add. They can't be less restrictive than what the state requires.
Good point.
Well. The state is a recommendation.
So let's say the state recommendations, they say they want 5 growers down here in Houston County, we only want 2. How we're gonna be able to hold that up? Just 2? Or are we gonna have to go with the 5 like the state says?
There's, as far as I know, there's no limit on growers. It's just on the cannabis retail stores, there's 1 per 12.5. There's no limit on grower licenses that I know
So we don't have a lot of.
of. So we wouldn't have nothing in the language for that. We would just have it in the language of where it can be done. You know, whether it's in ag district or industrial district or whatever. And the growers, we're talking confined greenhouse areas. This isn't rows of
This would be all
pot
fenced in.
right out in the middle of the field. That's not gonna happen.
Is that how our ordinance? You can go inside it.
Well, I mean, that's the only way you can grow the stuff. You can't grow it out.
You can grow it out in the wild.
Well, for industrial hemp, yeah, that's one thing, but we're talking recreational hemp. Cannabis, yeah. That has to be grown inside in a controlled environment.
That's the weird.
It has
That's the
to,
best result.
it has to be. I mean, you don't want cross pollination and all that. I mean, there's hybrids and
Then we can make it required to be inside.
Right.
In our ordinance. 5-acre field.
Well, I mean, yeah, look at the hemp rules too. I mean, that's a program, that's an ag program, and you can grow how many acres, I don't know, how many can you grow of that?
for industrial hemp, yeah.
Yeah, how many acres can you grow of that? There's an awful lot of questions.
Well, we'll have to keep on it with John and Martin and maybe more to come with some of the little changes they've done and.
AMC providing leadership or guidance as far as.
Well, just what we did last time. I mean, that I think that they did here last week, that draft was from AMC.
But can we ask them to tell us? The ag aspect of it, the manufacturing.
Could sure try Office of Cannabis too. I'm gonna try to sit on the next meeting for that too, so. They haven't scheduled them yet.
All right. I think we need our own ordinance.
Yeah.
Cities gotta follow or can exempt themselves, but can't be less restrictive.
Yep.
My opinion.
I agree. When Jake was here, though, he did say that the reason why he wanted to be exempt is because their businesses wouldn't be able to exist under the proposed ordinance. So I think that they are wanting to be less restricted, so you probably need to talk to them.
Sure. And their ordinance, my opinion, can't be less restrictive, and then you go and get a variance. Let's say they've got a business that is 990 feet from the school. Get a 10-foot variance, if that's acceptable to this.
That'd be the way they usually would do it. That way the public would have input.
Good point.
Instead of saying, well, we're just gonna go closer distances and do it the way we want. I don't think
No,
that's-
that ain't good.
I just don't agree. with it. My opinion.
Another thing I want to bring up, it was recently in the paper about the investigation, and I just wanted to make some clarifications. I did talk to Rose yesterday about it. It wasn't an impartial judge. It was an outside counsel that made the determination that there was technically nothing legally done. But when you read the investigation material, it's definitely, there was a lot of confusion. And it wasn't very organized. So I think we should try it from in the future to come up with a policy. Code of conduct policy would be nice to have to prevent something like that from happening, and plus to have some organization in the hiring policies for whether it's personnel or RFPs for contracts. As of now, yet, I have yet to see a new hiring policy being brought forward. It's being in review.
It's been there a long time.
Yeah, but it hasn't been brought to us yet for recommendation. I would like to see that get to us and have a discussion and debate about that. That's all I got.
Well, just a couple of things at community service meeting last week. Bob indicated that Olmsted County, they're going up to help train their folks. Some of the people we have are in that department are doing some extra work too, so they're doing that. And that property tax relief for the veterans was still up in the air at that time. I don't know what finalized in the union or in the negotiation at the state level. And later last in the ninth, I was at the workforce line, and it was just kind of the audit and not much else going on. Talked about the future classes and training. Got a lot of people going through training at workforce development. That's it.
Commissioner Burns.
Well, I had an opioid meeting. It wasn't so much a meeting, it's a discussion as to providing a survey to the public to get their input as far as what the opioid settlement dollar should be used for and how the opioid settlement should carry forward. So it's kind of still in its infancy. Then I went to I sat and listened to a child first telephone meeting and all that. Allison expound on that as far as everything on that phone call.
Yeah, so we had the child care core team typically meets every month, and so we get updated on the grant that's open. And then we also just look at all the other things that we're working on, like making workforce pipelines, things like that. Our grant with First Children's Finance, it's sunsetting, but the work will still continue, and the core team has agreed to keep meeting monthly. And I think Kyle from WDI is going to be coming to the board soon to give an update and a presentation that will focus on the grant and the numbers and comparing what we've done in Tuesday County to other areas. So I won't spoil the all the details there, but it should be a good report. And then, we'll kind of talk about what we're working on next.
Thank you. And then, I know that Hiawatha Valley is gonna be coming to make a presentation to the board at some point in time. I don't know if they've made an appointment yet or not. Last note, if we have an interest, and I haven't heard much. If we have an interest with regard to increasing the wheelage tax, $10 to $20. We have to make that notification to the state before the 1st of August. That wouldn't take effect until next year. So it'd be the $10 would raise roughly $200,000. If we have an interest in doing that.
And for what use would that be used for?
You buy vehicles with it for the county instead of leasing.
You got, basically, you gotta use it for highway projects. I don't know if we could use it for vehicles. but
You gotta use it for a project.
I mean, it could be chip sealing, it could be aggregate road.
But it has to be a new project. It can't, it can't be a project that's already scheduled to be doing. So it'd have to be a totally new project. Same way with sales tax.
How about maintenance rock?
Nope,
Why
that's
is that
something
one?
that's already scheduled every year what to do for maintenance.
Not really. Not here.
But I mean, same way with a sales tax. If we implement a sales tax, that has to be used for a specific reason, purpose. And it has to be a new reason, a new use, not something that's in the future budgets, right? So to me, in my opinion, doesn't mean much, but in my opinion, it isn't really gonna help us for levy at all. It's new dollars that's gonna be spent.
So it'd be $200,000 going into the highway department, correct? So the highway department could swap some funds around and I'm
No.
sure that, well, they've done it before. I'm not gonna say no. We've done this shit before, no,
Well-
somebody here hasn't.
We cannot do that.
It has to have a specific purpose, is that what is understood for that particular wheelage
That's my understanding.
increase?
That's my understanding.
Seal Coat Road.
Is it possible to get the copies of the requirements and we take a look at it?
Yeah, like that.
Thank you.
It's out there.
That's all I've got.
Commissioner Schultz,
Not much, we didn't have an official jail, meeting with Brian. I seen he was on there before, Sheriff Whitford, but he did send a little update to Commissioner Severson and I that the Department of Justice Inspector was there last Thursday. Did a walk through the
Department
facility.
of Corrections.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Department of Corrections, and did a walkthrough. And everything looked good. He reported to us and that they're working on the 10-page application. And then a little side note that he told us too is that they don't have to do this, have a school staff on board during the summer months when school is not in session. So that's a little bit easier for the school, and he's still working with them, so. They're still plugging away and.
She found out how much.
Not that he's reported. I'm hoping he's gonna have some more reports coming up here shortly, so. Still moving forward. That's all I have.
Commissioner Myrie.
I got nothing.
You know what that means?
Public comment, we're out of here.
Yeah, is there any public comment? We have a Bill H. Would you like to make a public?
It's Chief Deputy.
Oh, Bill Hargrove, okay. Is there anybody who would like to make a public comment? If not, is there a motion to approve? I mean, adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Like your reminders, you got filings coming up.
Starts